So we're now in the nursery where we're doing a lot of the work of developing the new plants that are going to the Charles Faram development programme. I'm with Peter Glendenning, who's the man responsible for all this. We're stood next to the original Jester plant there, which is the mother of all the Jester. Every single seedling will have been developed from this plant. But Peter, I mean, we talk about the programme in general. We started about 10 years ago, didn't we? Or you were going a little bit before that, weren't you?
A little bit before. I was looking at some rogue plants in some hop yards and thinking, oh, they're different. And they weren't sports; they were seedlings of original varieties that we were growing, like Sovereign or Target or whatever. And I thought, that's interesting. I'll plant some seeds and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I planted a whole dose of seeds up this row. And one of the seedlings, one of the parents I was most interested in was Cascade, because you kept telling me you wanted some Cascade aromas in the English program.
Aromas, yeah, that's it, yeah.
And we had always told you before that no, you can't have American aromas in England because we haven't got the temperature, haven't got the climate. We can't compete with the American aromas on that front, so we'd be wasting our time. So I'd have a go anyway, and I remember one year, it was 2012, I had a sample of one of the Cascade seedlings in my little white pots, if you remember.
I remember you bringing them in.
And you were on the phone, probably to America, selling well-spotted hops, I don't know. And so I stuck it under your nose while you were on the phone, and you had assumed then that I'd pinched some of your US Cascade out of your store and pretending it was one of mine, but so it was a bit of a joke we played on you, hence the name Jester.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is one of the Cascade seedlings, Jester here.
Yeah. No, I must admit, when you first brought me that sample, I couldn't quite believe that it was a British sample because it had such a strong flavour compared to some of the flavours that we were getting from the British varieties. You know, the more traditional flavours, Challenger, Fuggles, and Goldings. These were very different, and so when you put them in front of me, it was very exciting to see and to smell those aromas that were coming from perhaps a British plant.
Yes.
Which I thought you were joking, because as we said, the name Jester. But and then from there, we've sort of extended the programme quite a bit now, haven't we?
Yes. You're only as good as your last failure in many ways, and so what I decided to do, well, with you, was to set up a programme whereby we were developing the seedlings, growing the plots on farm, and you've seen Mark's at Bosbury, and other farms as well.
Yeah.
And then it isn't in the growing and the sniffing so much, it's in the brewing, so you then need to tie that in with lots of brewing samples and trials as well, and that's what's really made the programme work. So what I did first was to take seedlings of Jester with Jester's sons, so it's all inbreeding, which is a big no-no for some breeders. They like to get the sample genes from as widely as possible, but hops are a funny animal. They express their genes really widely, and so you can end up with, as you can see down this row, some plants will be 30 feet tall, some plants will only grow 1 or 2 feet tall, real runts. So to me it was all in the selection. So we had seedlings of Jester, and suddenly the myrcene content jumped up 5%. And one of the daughters of Jester is Godiva, with that clean lagery fruitiness. And so I took seedlings of Godiva, and we have Harlequin come out of that, and that's our new benchmark.
Yes. So certainly we're getting a lot more flavour. I think you said to me once, every year we go past, we tend to get sort of another 5% aroma onto the flavours. How far do you think we can go with that? Do you think there's a ceiling?
Well, we didn't think we'd get to Jester in the first place, did we?
That's a good point.
But then again, going back to Jester, it depends how you present the hop as well to the brewer, whether it's a leaf hop, whether it's a concentrated pellet, or however it is. I was surprised, I still am surprised, by Jester, let alone Harlequin, which gives that taste into the beer, which is doubly surprising in many ways. But the children of Harlequin are coming out strong as well. How well they're going to brew, we'll have to see.
Wait to see,
so sooner or later, there's a diminishing return.
We'll get to a point where we can't go any further. But I must admit, it's amazed me that within the program so far we've got such a growth of different varieties for a start off. I mean, all of them have been good. We've built in a lot of pest and disease resistance, which is excellent, but also the aromas in the main, they've been developing every year and getting more intense, which I never thought we could get from the UK climate. So it's really exciting to see that coming on, and to hear that you've got even more coming through in the program further on, which is even more exciting.
Yes, we keep raising the bar every year. So now I'm looking for the higher yields, the better resistance or tolerance to disease, which is important, especially in the UK. And I'm looking for a resin. I'm looking for
a bit more alpha.
Yes,
aroma.
Not just an aroma, but looking for some punch in there as well.
Yeah, no, it's good. We're seeing now that a lot of the higher alpha varieties are producing more of the intensity of aroma as well, and there's a lot more oil in there. And I think we've spoken before about the thiols and the different oils we're looking for. We can't quite pinpoint which oils we're looking for to match up to the flavour, but we're getting there, aren't we?
Well, we think we know what we're doing. No, the Americans spent a great deal of time and money trying to predict through oil analysis of the hop what the taste in the beer was going to be like. Yeah. And essentially they come up with the answer, it's an art.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is concentrating on what the plant is like, selecting them through, scientific method, but actually it's intuition. And then we go through whether the grower thinks it's acceptable or not, and whether the grower actually wants to carry on growing it. And then you have to make a decision whether you want to buy it or not, based on whether the brewer wants to brew with it or not. So the whole thing it's really important to work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why the programme's working.
No, well, it's great. We'll keep up the good work, Peter. We're certainly looking forward to those new varieties coming through, and I'm sure all of our brewer customers are also looking forward to that, because there's lots more to try and to taste, and to drink some nice beers with them is always enjoyable too. So very good. In our hop development program, when we're looking for new varieties, once they've come through the breeding program and been selected as seedlings from the greenhouse, and they've gone through all that mildew and disease testing, we then figure that they're good enough to try and grow out in the field. And we're here at Mill End Farm, Sarah Hawkins Farm, Mill End Farm, and we're at the patch where we've planted a few of these new potential seedlings. So you can see there's a lot of rabbit netting around the outside. This is to keep out any rabbits from nibbling away at our prized new plants. We want to try and keep them as safe as possible and as clean as possible. They won't grow much more than this now. We're at sort of September time, early September, so they won't grow much more than this now. But next year they'll come back much stronger and grow. We'll put some strings on them, they'll grow much taller and be a much stronger plant next year, and we can assess them even better. Each one of these plants is an individual seedling, completely new varieties taken from different males and females, so they're all potentially a new variety. They've all got the characteristics that we're looking for: more flavour, more aroma, high resistance to pests and diseases, and good picking qualities. You can see they've just come out of the greenhouse, so they're a little bit wind bruised and battered. That's because they're been used to being in a nice warm well-fed area, and then they're now into the open field and exposed to to Mother Nature, and she's battered and bruised them a bit from the wind. But this is really exciting because it's nice to see the varieties getting to this stage where we can potentially get to try them next year with a few cones, rub and sniff them, and then get them into some beers and see what they taste like in the brew. So we've now come down to the hop yard, the development hop yard on one of the farms. This is where we're growing a lot of the seedling varieties. The new varieties are just coming through from the program, and I'm next to a variety here which we've beautifully named CF247. We give them all numbers in the program before they go on to commercial production. CF247 has been selected for its big bold cones, its beautiful appearance, very good yields, excellent resistance to pests and diseases, and it picks very well on the picking machine. So all round it's got great agronomic qualities, but what it's also got is great flavour, and the aroma on these is stunning. When we sort of pick and have a rub and a sniff of these, we're getting some really nice grapefruit, lemon flavours coming through, which is great to see on a British variety. We've been aiming for these fruity flavours for some time, Jester, Olicana have all come through, and we've got Harlequin coming through now as well. This is the next stage, if you like. This is going on another generation of breeding, and CF247 we'll probably see in beers within the next 12 months once these have been picked, and we'll be doing some trials, and depending on those trials we'll then take it even further out into the market for more beers and more people to choose. So here we are in the seedling yard, and these plants will have come out from the greenhouse a year and a half ago. About 18 months ago they were planted. Very small cuttings, misted cuttings from the greenhouse, little peaty pots that get planted away, and they've grown away nicely. And as you can see, we've got some that have grown really well and some that haven't grown at all, or we've chopped out. We do take out the males because we don't want the male plants to be in the yard. We want to be able to choose the males we cross with the females so that we can select them for good growth and good quality. And others just haven't grown at all, so some will grow very poorly up the vine, up the string, and we just then know that they're not going to be a potentially new variety going forward. So we do get a lot of waste in here because we don't have a lot of plants or we lose a lot of plants that are not up to scratch. But that's good, because finding the failures is a good way of finding the good ones as well, because they stand out even more. So this part is the second step on from the greenhouse, the original greenhouse where we do the crosses and get the seeds. And these will possibly be coming into our program for next year. We do a rub and sniff in our World Series competition. These seedlings will be all individual varieties, and potentially next year could be taken on to where CF247 is, moving on to that next phase with more plants and more area ready to grow. We've just moved into one of the other rows in the seedling yard now, and as you can see they're not quite as well up the string as the other hops. That's because last year this row was subjected to powdery mildew for a test, and a lot of the plants in this row failed. They weren't extremely susceptible to powdery mildew, but we want to produce plants that do have very, very good resistance if we possibly can. And there are other plants that are better over in the other side of the yard here. But these then have only been planted this year, so they're first year seedlings grown from misted cuttings as before. But you can see they've not quite got up to the tops of the row. They're producing some good hops, but they've not hit the tops of the wire, so they won't be fully harvested this year. That said, next year they'll be into full production, and we should see their full potential in the picking machine next year. We've now moved on to one of our new varieties, which has been named Godiva. And if you look at the cones here, you can see why we've selected it. An amazing plant, covered in cones, lots of smaller cones, but just an immense array of cones all over the plants. And you can hardly see any leaves on there at all, which again is great, because those plants are putting all their energy into producing the cones and not the leaves. So we're hoping for a good yield off Godiva, and we're looking for it to be nice and consistent year on year. So far through the trials it's shown excellent resistance to disease and good growing properties like this. Brewing has been very good with it as well. We've had some great results with beers, and so it looks like we're going to take Godiva on a little bit further and see how far we can grow it in terms of being a commercial variety. You can't hesitate to say what a fantastic array of plants we've got here. Next to the Godiva we've got Harlequin, and these are a little bit behind, so they're not quite as well developed as the Godiva, probably a little bit later picked. But you can see the cones are much longer and much thinner cones. They'll grow out a bit further still yet, and it's a very different plant to the Godiva. It's got there are a few leaves on here, much darker green, and also the aromas are coming through probably a little bit stronger than Godiva in the beers and on the rub. And it's also a higher alpha, so when you open the cone and rub and sniff the hop, you can see also in there a lot of oil, a lot of alpha acid, and lupulin glands are in there, it's huge. And so we've got a really nice pineapple aroma coming through off these now. But they're going to be another couple of weeks before they get to full ripeness, ready to pick. But again, another case of a new variety that's come through our program, performed well against pests and diseases, and really has an exciting and new aroma that we haven't had in British hops before. It's taken us a while to get there, but we are starting to pick up much more intense flavours and more fruitiness in the beers, which I think is what some of these new styles of beers are looking for. We've now come down to the Jester yard, and I've been joined by Mark Andrews, who's done a lot of the work for us here. on the farm, developing the new varieties, particularly this one, which is Jester. This is the first variety we ever had come out of the programme with that more intense aroma, a bit more flavour. And Mark, how long has the Jester been on the farm here?
So we've had Jester here for 8 years.
8 years, and over that period of time it's sort of been okay for you? Has it worked right?
It's been a good consistent variety.
Yeah.
It's yielded well. We've had very little disease problem.
Excellent.
It's been really good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And we've found just recently we've had some very good success with Jester in lager type beers, which has surprised me a little bit, because I thought with the stronger flavours it may not balance so well in a lager, but actually the lagers are tasting really good from that. I'll have to send you some of those, Mark.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
But from a development point of view, the programme as a whole, you've obviously been quite key to it for Charles Faram. Have you enjoyed working on those new plants?
Oh, it's been fantastic. We've had lots of new stuff coming along, and it all started with Jester, and a lot of the varieties up till now have been daughters of Jester or granddaughters.
Yeah, we've done a lot of the crossbreeding within the family to make to try and increase the intensity of those flavours. How have you found them in terms of fertiliser and pesticide use? Are they sort of hungry for fertiliser, or how does that work?
Well, what we generally found is that from a disease point of view, they've been very disease resistant. So I think I've only ever found powdery mildew in the Jester once. And so over the years, as we've got used to them and understand how they grow, we've reduced the fungicide inputs, and I've reduced them more this year.
Yeah.
So probably we've had a 20% reduction in fungicide
Excellent
usage,
news.
which is good news for everybody, really.
And are you finding that on other varieties as well? Is that something that carries on through? Because I know we're putting a lot of effort into getting rid of any plants that don't or show signs of powdery mildew or disease or resistance to susceptibility to pests. So obviously by selecting the plants that have the stronger growing pattern without the disease, obviously we're getting somewhere on the right track there, aren't we?
Definitely. All the plants that come out of the breeding program at the moment have got excellent disease resistance, and generally they need just a bit less fertiliser as well, which is sort of good news all round.
Fantastic. Yeah. We've just walked a little bit further down into the Jester, and we've got a few varieties coming through the programme now, Mark. What ones are your favourites? Have you had any favourites?
Well, it started off, I was really excited by Jester, and that was a really good variety. And then as the program's moved on, my favourites changed, and I've got to say, having picked some Harlequin last year, I was really very impressed. I was really pleased. But there's some other stuff, newer stuff in the programme, and I'm thinking that could be my favourite next year, or even this year. Yeah. Once we've harvested them.
It seems that every year we're making a step forward, isn't it? Every year we're picking up a lot of the characteristics that we want and losing some of the characteristics that we don't want. So it's really exciting to see that development phase going on and on. Peter Glendenning, our plant breeder, says that every year we get a little bit more aroma, about 5% more aroma on the plants each year. And so I wonder if also we're picking up some of the strong agronomic qualities every year as well through the selections.
Yes, I think perhaps we are. Yeah, because we're getting some very good, just getting some good plants. It's from a grower's point of view. And if that's good for the brewer as well, then we're all quids in.
Well, yeah, I think if you look at the higher aromas, less inputs, I think is a really key part for us at the moment. We're trying to reduce the environmental impact that we're having. Also trying to produce hops locally for the British market here as well. So there's a whole load of benefits from the programme, and we're certainly keen to keep pushing it forward. Hopefully with your help, Mark, that'd be good.
Well, I hope so. Yeah.